what's on the agenda today?
Mid-segments. Today we are looking at mid-segments, the mid-segments of a triangle. Now there are three mid-segments in a triangle, and a mid-segment is a line that connects two midpoints of a triangle together. And there's three of them. There's three midpoints of a triangle, so there's three lines that will connect those midpoints together. And it works out, yes sir?
Never mind, I'll ask you at a better time.
Are going to be congruent. So the third side is going to be equal to, or the mid-segment is equal to half of the length of the third side. And that's actually what our next formula is that the mid-segment, DE, is equal to half the length of the third side, AC. So the mid-segment is equal to half the length of the third side. Yes. So here, AC's length, if we multiply it by 1/2, we get DE. Guys, if we take DE's length, what would we need to do to get to the third side? So our third side, if we take that and multiply it by 1/2, we get the mid-segment. But if we want the third side, we would take the mid-segment and multiply it by what? 2. Because the third side is equal to twice the mid-segment, or the mid-segment is equal to half of the third side.
That looks delicious. Except the
Guys. So, what we're told is a few things. We're told that xj is congruent to jy. We're also told that yl is congruent to lz. xk is congruent to kz. So that means that these three here are our mid-segment lines. And the mid-segment lines are parallel to the third side. So these two lines here would be parallel. So JL is actually going to be congruent to XZ. These two sides are going to be parallel. Any questions on this so far? Now it also means that JL, this should be over here. Because I did the second one. Because the first one was asking for J. Okay, that's my bad. All right. So the side that would be parallel to JK would be our YZ. Because the third side and its mid-segment are going to be parallel to each other. So here, JK and YZ would be parallel. JL and XZ would be parallel to each other. Okay? Mm-hmm. Yes. So XY would be parallel to what line segment? KL. XY and KL would be parallel to each other. Now we also do have congruent segments in this here. Because it told us originally that these are mid-segments, so these segments are congruent, these are congruent, and these here are congruent. So JY would be congruent to what? JX. Because we know those are congruent, they were told to us. What other line would it be congruent to? KL. Because KL is the mid-segment, yes? The mid-segment is equal to half of its corresponding third side.
Yeah.
So if it's half, it means we have two of the same length that make up this line here. All three of these are going to be congruent. Any questions on this here? Okay. Let's look at the next one. Here, we have line segment JL. Well, what other line segment would be congruent to JL? So not the whole thing, but it would be X. Okay.
How do you know that?
Because the mid segment is equal to what? Half of the third side. Well, what's the third side to JL? It would be XZ. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How do you tell us the third side? I'm confused.
So two congruent segments, so it connects the midpoint. Because the third side, the mid segment is always parallel to its third side. So here, the mid segment is JL, well, the third side would be XK, and it's equal to half of the measure. Well,
So,
K is the midpoint,
yeah.
so it breaks it in half. So all three of these would be congruent to each other.
So if it was KL, then XJ would be the thingamabobber.
KL. So KL would be over here. Yep. And then B, XJ and JY.
Oh, so okay.
Yep. So let's look at the last set. And the last set would be our JK.
That far side. That has ZL and on top of whatever it is.
So these three lengths would be congruent. They would be the same.
It doesn't matter which one you try.
Because as long as we associate the three that are congruent to each other. Questions on this here? Guys? Trinity? So let's look at these next few examples finding the value of X. Now, X is our length of the mid-segment. And the mid-segment is equal to what? Half of the third side. Well, what's the length of the third side here? So to find it, we take half of 26. So X is equal to 13. Sadie, guys, let's wake up. Huh? Any other questions on this one here? Let's look at this one here. Now this one here, they didn't give us the length of the third side. They gave us the length of the mid-segment. Well, the mid-segment is equal to, well, the third side is equal to twice the midsegment. So if we know what the midsegment is, we can double it to get the third side. So we can do 2 times 5, which is 10. So the third side would be 10. Up here. Any questions on anything so far? Let's look at number 9. ED, guys, ED is the midsegment, so it's connecting the 2 midpoints of the line. So E and D are midpoints, which means that BD and DC are congruent. And AE and EC would be. Any questions on this here? Yep. Because here, when we did midsegment is the line DE, and AB would be our third side. But the midsegment connects the 2 midpoints, so E and D are midpoints. They're the middle of the line. So that means AE and EC would be congruent to each other. So that means this has to be 6 and this one has to be 6.
So if the X was on the other side,
Here?
oh, up top.
And this was, say, 8. Well, in this case, X would be? This D is still a midpoint. Yep. Because again, these two are going to be congruent because it's still a midpoint.
And then A, B.
Yes.
Okay. Then A, B, C would be your
Third side, and this would be the midsegment.
No, that's a segment.
Yes. Any other questions on this here? I think that can wait. Find the length of AC. Because EC is 4.8, and we can multiply it by 2 or add the 2 together and get that AC is 9.6. So these 3 here, so the lines inside this triangle are all midsegments. It tells us that AB is 3x plus 8. It tells us that GJ, the whole length, is 2x plus 24. Well, we know that the third side is equal to twice the midsegment. So if I want to find out what the length of either one of these is I need to find the value of x. And once we find the value of x, we can plug it back in. So what is the length of the third side? Well, it is equal to 2 times the midsegment, which is 3x plus 8. Now at this point here, we do need to solve for the value of x. So what can we do first? We need to distribute the 2. Because The 2x plus 24 would be the same. Now 2 times 3x would be 6x. 2 times 8 is plus 16. What would we need to do next? We can subtract 2x. We could subtract 16. That would work out just fine. Here we're going to subtract 2x, because 2x minus 2x would cancel, giving us 24 is equal to 4x plus 16. And then we can subtract 16 from both sides. Which will tell us that 16 or 24 minus 16 is equal to so x is equal to 2. Any questions on how we got the value of x? Now, what are we wanting to find the length of? Well, AB is defined by 3x plus 8. So we can do 3 times
2 plus 8 would be 3 times 2. 6 plus 8 is 14.
So AB is 14. Questions on this here?
No questions.
Yeah.
If I was to write a number on every one of the answers, what would you do?
I'd mark it all wrong.
That's the reason I would do that.
Okay. So, when we look at this one here, we're going to do a similar thing to what we just did. Now, they tell us that AC is 3y minus 5. They tell us that HJ is 4y plus 2. And we want to find the value of HB. Well, HB is congruent to what? BJ and AC. They're all going to be the same length. So if I can find the length of one of those 3 segments, I will find the other 2, because it will all be the exact same length. And we know that the third side length is equal to twice the measure of the mid-segment, which is
6, 10.
so 4y plus 2 is equal to 2 times 3y is
6,
minus
10.
and then we can
Minus 4 from both sides.
subtract 4y from both sides. The 4y minus 4y will
0.
cancel, leaving us 2 is equal to
2 equals 2y minus. So, add for both sides. 12.
so 2y is equal to 12. Divide both sides by 2. Any questions on how we got this answer? And now the next thing we need to do is to plug it back in. Which one can we plug it back in for?
4. I thought it was 4y plus
We can do either one. So we can do, 3 times 6 minus 5.
3 times 6 is 8.
Minus 5 is? So the length of AC is, which means that these two will also be. So HB is 13. Now if we plugged it into 2y or 4y plus 2, well 4 times 6.
4 times 6 is 4.
Now that tells me that the entire length is, but to find the length that we want, we have to divide it by, which would give us
13.
So we would get back to 13. So HB is 13. Are there any other questions on this here? And that is it.